Mile High and About to Die. This is your co-host, Alex Blum, with
Zach Blum, also the co-host.
The Blum Man, the Blumster.
Blummer and Bloomer.
Burler. We are on the 9th step, which, do you know what it is? I bet you do.
I do know. This is the amends step. It's made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
One of the top 12 most famous steps. In this
It is. It's like, one of the 12 steps that's famous. Yes.
Considered, I think, by many, one of the most kind of scary, difficult, and rewarding steps out there, I think.
Yes! High risk, high reward.
Right.
What are we really risking? We'll get into that. What are we being really rewarded with? Oh my goodness. You're in for a treat, everybody. Alex, why don't you tell the good people and the shitty people, all the people.
Mostly the shitty people.
Why don't you tell them what the 12-step principle is for the 9th step?
I'm going to say justice.
Oh, yeah.
Or is it just ice?
I might have, that's a typo.
Justice.
Yeah, it's just us girls here. Yeah, let's have some fun. Let's tell some secrets.
Cosmos for nobody.
Yeah, I'll have a virgin. Yeah. Cosmo. Anyway.
So what is it? Well, tell me, what does this mean? I guess a lot of people, I think, when they think about AA, it's about this, you have to go face the people and tell them you're sorry and then give them money or something, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably it. You just, you tell them that you're a piece of shit and you let them know that you're the worst, and then you don't ever have to feel guilt again. I think that's what it is. Is that right?
I think it's the Catholic Church you're talking about.
Right. Yes, that's right. Yeah, you get them young.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesus.
Let's do a little recap of where we've been in the last 8 episodes. Steps 1 through 3 kind of lumped together. What are steps 1 through 3 really about?
I think it's kind of just getting back to the truth, clearing up, realizing I'm a little distorted or maybe a lot distorted in my thinking, and then saying, how do I find something that's going to be almost a better source of truth for me?
Yeah, we talked about Gandhi and that Satyagraha truth force, that helped, peaceful revolution in India. So we're trying to find the truth. We're trying to get some honesty and acceptance in steps 1, some hope for a new path in step 2, and then the faith that we found a path that's going to work, and we're going to stick with that path, and we're going to take the actions of steps 4 through 9.
It's a slippery path.
Yeah, exactly. Very slippery. So we're going to need some tools along the way to make sure that our footing stays underneath us, recovered underneath our body, if you will. So in steps 4 through 7. What's really going on in steps 4 through 7?
I kind of see it as basically you're sort of clearing out the old muck and wreckage. I'm making a list. I'm checking it twice, and I was naughty.
You were never nice.
I was not nice. And then it's basically telling that to somebody else, identifying sort of themes or clarity around, okay, what are the things, the beliefs I have that keep repeating some of these cycles, and then saying, clear it out, big man,
Or big woman, or big spirit, or big idea. Maybe just a big idea.
It's big, though.
It's huge.
We can agree on that.
Huge. So we've identified that we need some truth in our lives. We're going to act on that truth, and then in steps 4 through 7, we're really talking about, armed with this idea of truth, we're actually going looking for the false parts of ourselves in order to identify where we were wrong, so that we can get all the stuff that's wrong in our lives out of the way, so we can be nothing but right for the rest of our lives. I like being right.
There's nothing. If being this right is right, then let me be right.
All right.
I'm wondering, where in these steps do I get a super hot trophy wife?
Well, for me, I did the steps, and then I was rewarded with...
You got a hot trophy wife?
I did. I mean, I don't know if she's a trophy per se, as she is...
You don't consider her a trophy?
She's the race in and of herself. She's an adventure all of her own. I love you, Katie.
Zach's gonna be single real soon if everyone's looking for a partner.
I became a different version of myself, a better version of myself that qualified for
a trophy wife.
Yeah, I mean, I actually was blessed with a lot of wonderful women that I got to date. I was not at my best there.
Janina,
mostly I was
Rachel.
pretending. I didn't realize I was, but
okay, I think we're
getting
off
off track. Pretty sick guy, yeah.
So you didn't get a trophy
It does
wife.
pertain to a man.
Did you get a trophy wife or not? Is that offensive?
I didn't get a trophy. And I didn't get, that's probably offensive.
Did you get a wife?
I did. I actually met my wife, a few months after finishing my amends and finishing my steps.
So that's why we do it.
Yeah, I mean, so ultimately, we're here to smash what is false and, line up around the weapons of truth and love that are going to help us, arm us to be our best selves and to go, dispense with the falseness in our own lives, not in other people's lives, but in our own lives. And then maybe as a byproduct of ourselves getting lined up in a good way, maybe we can help other people in our family, in our community as well.
So it's like you have like a love gun.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing the 12 steps is like growing another dick. It's pretty awesome.
Big love dick.
I just get to love on people.
Big old hairy love dick.
All day long. Just like love everywhere.
God, right on ya.
Truth and love. Oh. Yeah.
So on step 8, then we I feel like after step 7 is we've entered a new phase of steps. Is that true?
Yes. So I did a little experiment where I tried to just do steps 1 through 7.
Yeah.
And it turns out there was more action. There was stuff that was left in the past, wrongs that I had done that some part of me had recorded, and I felt terrible about it still. And I couldn't let go of my old false shit until I fully went back and addressed every single one of these things, all the harms that I had done in my life. So for me to become the better, bigger version of myself, and to let go of the small little guy that barely got me into the rooms, barely survived the war of addiction, I ultimately, I had to take action, and I had to become willing to make amends to every single person, to every single institution that I had wronged or harmed, including even the ones that, step 8 is just about willingness. That's the principle behind step 8. I'm just talking about, can I become willing, to possibly even go to jail for some of these things? There was some theft in there. There were some things that were maybe, borderline crimes. I wasn't living a criminal lifestyle, but there were some things, if we're going to go to full extent of justice, my initial reading of like, oh, what is justice? Well, what is it? What do I deserve?
Yeah.
Well, deeply, I thought I deserved, to die. I thought I deserved to not have a good life. I thought I deserved the worst things because I didn't even realize that I had all these little things that bothered me that I had done wrong. I was drinking those away, but when I became sober and wanted to live this sober, altruistic lifestyle, I had to go and address these wrongs from my past with the people that I participated in them with.
So we made this list. We were willing to make amends. And now it's time to do it in step 9. Mm-hmm. So step 9 is really, it's kind of like about relationships, yeah?
Yeah, so, we all through this process, it's really important that we have a mentor as we're going through these steps. And
like
so
a dementor?
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Well, no, that's Harry Potter again. I love this. I feel like the millennial crowd is really going to go for this stuff. You guys out there. So, the idea of the mentor is that, look, we could do this together. Like, hey, will you go through these steps with me? I'll mentor you through your steps as you go face yourself. I'll hold your hand as you face yourself. And will you hold my hand as I face myself, through all these things? And so it's really a peer kind of thing. But when we sit in this space of like, I'm gonna put all this stuff out there, in my 5th step, I'm gonna tell you every secret that I've got because I don't want to be sick anymore. And I'm only as sick as my secrets. Steps 4 and 5 are really where we gel as like, look, I'm gonna tell you everything because I'm dying, keeping these things to myself, not examining these things. And in the process of examination, I realize that I can change how I feel when I'm looking at the events of my life. And that's a very important thing to do with another person. So, steps 8 and 9, it's crucial to have a mentor or a peer mentor that you're kind of going through these steps with, so that we have another brain to bounce these things off of, because like the same brain that was very sick, literally like mentally ill, in my case, sick in this way, I can't have that part of my, that brain now going and fixing all the, righting all these wrongs and fixing everything for everybody. I need to bounce a lot of stuff off another person to really weigh out, like, I need to be very careful about, it says in this step, we are not to do harm to others, except when to do so would injure them or others.
Which is, I think, takes a lot of the fun out of it.
Yeah, right. And and it also takes a lot of the later on amends, having to redo the amends, it takes that out of it too.
Keep it going.
Yeah, let's just keep on saying sorry to people.
You heal them and you hurt them all at once.
Exactly. Just say sorry and then you kick their dog on the way out.
Get out of here, you dog.
Yeah.
Or if you do good amends like an old girlfriend, you could sleep with them.
Right. Yeah. That's highly advised. Is definitely bring a lot of harm in every new amend that you do.
You get it.
It's never ending cycle.
Yeah.
You don't want to go on to steps 10, 11, and 12. Just stay in 9 for the rest of the time.
That.
Just never stop amends. Ooh, just warm and tingly inside.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's all fake, by the way. Don't do that.
Do it.
Okay, so this idea of relationships is, so I'm working on, this relationship with my peer, with my mentor that I'm kind of working through these things with.
I want to say something.
Please.
Hey.
Hey there.
That was it. No, well, I think also I find in a lot of other cults, like the way it works is, like they'll work well, but only inside the halls of the cult, Whereas I feel like the step 8, 9 is like you're like applying these things to the real world, and I think you find like a lot of these. I was just talking to my friend really the other day about an actual cult, and like basically one of the signifiers is it tends to be like, oh, like everyone's really into it, but the only way to like really enact it in your life is to like give your money to the cult, or like sort of it only works within that framework. Whereas what I think's cool here is like you go out to the regular world and you apply something and it tends to work most of the time. It's not like it only happens like in a classroom or something. And so I just think it's really interesting to be able to like go talk to somebody who doesn't have any of this idea of what you've been through or any of the process, but you can go up to somebody and say, hey, here's what happened, here's, my part in it, and, how do I make it right,
Well, like you get this new integrity in steps 4 and 5 where you go and look at yourself and realize, all the things that you were doing wrong, and then you can take some of the possible evils. Well, it's because there might be some evils that you might realize that you might have a monster inside of you that's getting in charge of the controls. But now it's kind of like putting a new thing in charge of that and letting this monster work for the greater good of everyone.
The monster's monster.
Yeah, the monster's balls. You could say
the monster's balls.
So we're just free floating here. Yeah. So if I'm going to bring in this integrity is about bringing together, looking at myself completely and bringing all things back together into wholeness. All right. So when I have this sense of wholeness, can I then move forward and help go back to the people that are not whole, possibly because I have fractured some piece of their existence off with with us butting up against each other, possibly because of my own insanity, and I'm going there to say, hey, I'm attempting to work my way back from insanity, and I realize that I've done something with you here that I might have fractured a piece off, and it allows them to take a look possibly at themselves. They can make that choice, but it brings this whole, it's this idea that you're now spreading. You can be an agent of love. You can be an agent of integrity around you now with the people that you've harmed the most. And so, it is kind of this, it's making it real. And in terms of this idea of like cults, you hear things about, AA is a cult, and like, that's fine. If you believe that, that's, take it or leave it. You don't have to do any of this stuff.
Right. But you're out of the cult if you don't.
Yeah, totally. You do not get any of this Kool-Aid. Sugar-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, booze-free.
Keto.
Who wants to
Keto
drink that
cult.
Kool-Aid anyway? But, it's the idea that if these are all voluntary, and that is the power behind all of this. It's one thing to have like traumas happen to you.
Love that.
And then it's another thing to, and this is what therapy is really about. It's another thing to say, okay, I'm going to willingly confront I'm going to go back and willingly confront these things that happened to me, and I'm going to unpack them, and I'm just going to face it and replay it, and with another person, and kind of walk through this therapeutically, so I don't have to just be in terror of this thing happening again. When you go and instead of running from something, if you go to willingly confront it, it's a whole different thing that starts to happen. To voluntarily confront the catastrophe that you have had in your life, that you've had some part in, even if it was fully as the victim, Why is it something that you haven't grown up from that moment in some way? And so step 9, in a lot of this, by the time we get here, we are really having to do a lot of, shadow work to forgive, and it is fucking ugly, gut-wrenching stuff to forgive, some of the people that may have harmed us, in intense ways. And for a lot of us, it's even more gut-wrenching still to forgive ourselves for, all the tyranny that, once you start to see that you've lived inside of these thought and emotion patterns, and you've just been stuck there, and you're bringing people into this sick little world of yours, to be able to walk free from that is such an amazing thing that if you're walking in love from step 8, love is the principle there. If you're walking in love, you want to go and help other people to heal as well. That's the idea here. You're an agent of love at this point.
Kind of like Austin Powers.
Yeah, exactly. You want to shag a lot of birds when you're doing this. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting you're using the word fracture before, of like almost part of our psyche or our integrity is broken off. And I think it's interesting that it's called an amends, similar to like how you mend a bone. It's not called an I'm sorry, for example, or my bads, Yeah,
it's not a sorries.
Yeah. So I think it'd be helpful, instead of me pretending like I don't know the answers, why don't we share with the audience? What are kind of basically there's kind of like a structure to how you do an amends. It's not just like, hey, sorry, I stole your wife,
Right.
That, by the way, Katie.
He's a better looking man than me. I wouldn't fault you for it, babe.
Me neither.
Yeah.
But so maybe you could just kind of talk through what are the actual structural, how do I do this and what don't I do to make an amends?
Yeah, so we talked about this, don't show up and say, I'm sorry. This is not a sorry so much as it's like, look, I've changed. I've had to change because I was in such a sick way that I was going to destruct, and I was on my way to destruction, disintegration, and death. And I've had to figure out a way out of that, and so I've
triple D's.
Yeah, so it's not an I'm sorry. It's like an amend also means to change, like an amendment in the Constitution. My Constitution has changed, and I'm not just there to say it. I'm there to show it, and the way that I'm showing it to the other person and to me. This is very important for me to fully heal. A person like me in my sickness, I never would have shown up and said, hey, I've wronged you, and I need to make it right if I can. I'm here to, if I can, make it right.
I noticed also that, when I first got sober, I was like, okay, I want to go tell everyone I'm better now and I'm sorry, day 2. And really for me, I didn't really get into doing amends until maybe 8 or 9 months sober, and it's still an ongoing thing in some cases, but it was really good. I waited that time kind of to get some distance from my past with things I've been doing. And really it was almost my experience, I think I shared this in the previous episode, was almost like I was apologizing for a different person, right? And so it felt a lot less scary to me because it was I just showed up, there was a mess on the floor and I got to clean it up, but it's not necessarily wasn't so attached to the dude who made the mess.
Exactly. Yeah, and so it's really, that's why it's step 9. So where we're going here. Steps 10, 11, and 12 are the maintenance steps that steps 4 through 9 cover. So once we learn them and kind of program our bodies and our neurologies around, I can think differently. I can
smell
have
differently.
Different emotions, and I can act differently. I can speak differently. That happens as a product of becoming, building this other neural network of, I'm no longer going to alcohol to solve all my problems. I'm coming up with, I'm forcing myself to face the pain, face the problems, and then attempt to solve them in these new ways. So because those are, the things that we're going ahead to in steps 10, 11, and 12, step 9 is really the last, we're trying to get across this finish line, and it's at the end because it's, first of all, it is the hardest step. Second of all, amend means change, which means you've got to work these other steps in order to have the change. And if you jump right to 9 and you're not ready for it, the experience tells us, people relapse. What usually will happen is they'll sit on their amends, they won't do steps 8 and 9, and then you'll hear about them, going out at some point in the future, and they sat on their amends. They never made their amends. So that's, I mean,
hard to get comfortable when you're sitting on an amends.
Exactly. Yeah. Ooh, it's pokey and owie. Yeah. And it's the idea that there is something in you that does not like what you've done, and you've got to address that and be done with it.
It's also, I know for me, I love knowing what's going to happen all the time. Like, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear, so I hear what I want to hear back. And a lot of this stuff is like, I don't really know what's going to happen going into this thing. Like, I screwed this guy over. He's probably pissed at me, and I hope he doesn't punch me in the face, Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and obviously, if you're working step 8 with a mentor, they're going to help you determine, we talked about the four areas, are of willing and available. Is this person willing? Are they available? Those are amends that we're probably going to make. As long as it's not going to do harm to them and it's not going to do harm to me.
Available and able, right?
Yeah, willing and able. Yes, sorry. I'm able to actually, they're in town. I can make a direct in-person amend.
Right.
They're not dead. They're not in some other place. It's not that they're not answering my phone calls.
Right.
It's that I'm willing and I'm able to actually they would sit down with me, I'm guessing. Then there's willing and unable. So I'm willing to do it, but again, unable. Maybe they're dead. Maybe they're out of state. Maybe they don't have a phone on Vanuatu or something. Yeah, I know. You've been there. And then unwilling and able. Those are the ones that we're going to pray for willingness, and hopefully that willingness comes. But maybe it's because we're afraid of something. But the idea is we're getting willing on those. And then there's unwilling and unable. Again, we want to find the willingness, and we just keep praying for the willingness until it comes. The idea here is there's a repository that I'm putting somewhere out there, a higher power or God was what I used, but that there's something that has all strength and all power that I'm asking to give me the power to do these things that I don't want to do, that I know are healthy for me to do. I'm feeling weak. I'm feeling like it might destroy me to do that, or it might endanger me. The idea is I want to be the kind of motherfucker that is willing to go to jail to feel free. I don't care if it's a physical jail that I have to go to. I want fucking freedom. I want to know that I have nothing on me anymore, and that I'm gonna, So, and then you go to step 9, okay? And then step 9, we actually kind of weigh out. Well, would this do harm to another person to tell them this information? Are you going to tell them a bunch of toxic shit that they don't know about that you're just trying to get off your chest? You call up an ex, oh God, did I cheat on you with everybody? Oh yeah. I just want to, whatever self-confidence you have.
Your current best friend Nina and your boyfriend, both of them. We were all doing it.
Yeah, mostly the boyfriend, but there was a little bit. Yeah.
She watched. I listened. So the idea is that this is not really about me, but about making things right for that person, right?
Correct. And in doing so, when you have the intention set around that, you get this strength that comes into play here, and with that, it gets all backed up, it's leveraged. You've got a lot of leverage to move forward through this thing, and then you get free. So, with having the intention of I'm going to go and help this person, you get helped as a byproduct of that. There's this prayer that we do at the end of a lot of meetings, the Lord's Prayer, which is forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So it's this idea that I get forgiveness and I feel the sense of shame falling away as I become willing to forgive others, as I become willing to go and make amends to these people. And some of these people, it might have been messy. They might have wronged me, but I'm putting all of that out of my mind, and so how do you do that? Well, that's step 8, where you're praying for the willingness and praying just for love. So when I'm thinking about this person, I'm doing these motherfucker prayers or best friend prayers. I'm thinking about these people in the most loving way. There's this other quote from this old book that's, treat others how you wish to be treated. But I think it's really, for us, I'm going to go back out and drink if it's just about treating them right. I have to think about them in the right way. And that's a hard thing, because I've got a little Hitler in here, and a little Stalin that just want to murder and just want to be in charge and just want to beat their little 3-year-old chest and never be hurt ever again.
Little 3-year-old Hitler.
Yeah. I mean, most 3-year-olds are kind of Hitler-esque.
I imagine with a mustache even at 3.
Yeah, like a little baby mustache kind of deal. So I just, the idea is I'm getting in touch with the darker parts of humanity, and that I am related to those darker parts of humanity, because my thinking is similar enough to anybody else who's ever lived that, I happen to be born in this life, and yeah, I may have become an alcoholic addict, but it could have been way worse. And if you're out there listening and you've never had those kind of situations, maybe that's grace in your life that you never had to face the things that we did, or the things that all the worst people in history faced and didn't deal with them very well. So, I want to stay on track here because we're getting a little.
I like it. You've really
World War II-y.
internalized my. I don't have to say anything. It's like, let's. Okay.
Yeah. Reel them back in. So it's I'm here to move forward in forgiveness as much as I can, and I want to go in there with nothing but love in my heart for these people. And the way that I can program myself, cult-wise, like I'm programming myself to love these people, whether they're my enemy or not. They are my best friend when I'm walking into that amend, and I want to approach it as such. Even if there's a part of me that knows that, I'm going to be praying for these people. I'm going to be wanting the best for them, because that actually changes my emotions and how I feel about them. And those emotions are going to sustain me when I get into this amend, and there may be some back and forth that I need to be emotionally ready for in a deep state of love.
Okay, I want to talk brass tacks.
Oh yeah. Hit me with it.
So, okay, like let's pretend you're gonna make an amends to me, right?
Totally.
So I'm on my day. Like, do you just show up? Do you call me? Do you send a telegram? Like, how do you? That's not every day. I just call people and go, hey, I need to, tell you about something really bad. Like, how do you do it?
Yeah. So the general knowledge on this one from the the 12-step groups that are doing this regularly is that you should reach out probably via phone call, if at all possible, and actually call this person.
Okay.
And I made that mistake, actually. I sent texts and Facebook
call me
messages.
Up. Let's do one.
Yeah, so I'm going to call you.
Hello, Zach.
Hey, Alex, it's Zach.
Fucking Zach?
Yeah, hey.
What do you want?
I would like to meet with you to discuss an important matter.
Is this about the $10 million you owe me?
We can cover it when we sit down. I'd love to get a coffee with you or something that works for you, if that would be all right.
Okay, but you're paying for the coffee.
I'd be happy to.
All right.
Thanks so much. Ninth Green at 9. We'll meet there.
Okay, I like that.
That's a Happy Gilmore reference.
So you call up and you sort of keep it vague, but just say you want to meet with him about something important.
Yeah, and if they're really digging, you can just say, I just want to address some things from the past. It's really better to just leave it for the conversation. If you start doing it over the phone, it's not going to probably go well. If you try to reach out via writing and you don't get them in person, they have a chance to sit and think. Like, we're trying to appeal to their higher self here.
What if I send a funny Snapchat meme?
Yeah, like, oopsie, did I do that?
Yeah, like a Steve Urkel.
Steve Urkel, yeah, for sure.
Steve Urkel is a big part of this.
Yeah, he's
okay. So now we meet at the coffee shop. Mm-hmm. Do you think you would be on time for that or no?
I better be. And if I've got a lot of work to do in my life if I'm running around late to amends.
All right, so you show up on time, and then, all right, man, thanks for the latte. Like, what do you want?
So you want to kind of intro to let them know. So there's a couple different schools of thought here, okay? The first one is, I'm meeting with you to overcome a struggle or an obsession with whatever it is that you have struggled or obsessed over.
So it could be like alcohol.
Could be alcohol, could be drugs, it could be, sex and love relationships, it could be, whatever you struggle with.
Crystal meth.
Okay, or dishonesty. You could even say that. Like, that's going to set the tone for this meeting. And the idea is your higher self is going to be sitting there to appeal to their higher self. You're going to be sitting there to talk to their higher self.
I like that.
So you're just kind of letting them know, leading them into it. I'm here to set right the wrongs, and clean up the wreckage of my past.
Okay.
And in doing some work, I realize that I've harmed you. And so I'm here to address that harm with you.
Oh, that sounds about time. That sounds pretty good to me.
Exactly. You want to hear somebody's mouth drop open? It's going to happen. So that kind of leads into this 4-part process of the amends themselves. So that's kind of the intro. That's the setup, and the intro of, I'm struggling with this thing, or I'm just trying to be a better version of myself, and I have not been a good version of myself in the past. And
do I have to tell them, do I go, hey, I'm in AA now, and that's why I'm here? Is that an important part?
So they say, it's better to not lead with the chin. If you're saying something like, I'm in a spiritual, it's better to not say something like that because, in my experience, because if you start, you're going to possibly have a longer conversation on the back end of this thing. So if people are asking you questions, getting curious, you can talk to them about that stuff.
Right.
I mean, I think that's totally fair.
It sounds like it's really more about you and me. It's not about some program or something.
Exactly. It's not. Yeah. It's not.
Kind of like
I've got a new God in my life, and Jesus has saved me, and I'm here to tell you all about it.
Right.
That's not going to fly with most people.
And so it's like I want to know it's coming from you, not like your boss told you to get a raise, you need to come talk to me.
Well, and it's like you're on some harebrained scheme of like self-improvement. You see this everywhere, and they're just going to be like, "Fuck you."
What is that harebrained? Like there's hair on your brain?
Well, not me anymore. Just here, right here.
An eyebrow brain scream.
Yes, they're screaming for help.
Okay, so you come in, you do a little intro, and then step 1 of the 4-step process?
Yeah, you're going to tell them what you did to hurt them.
Okay.
And these are bullet points, but you want to be thorough. Okay.
Like I gave you a lot of titty twisters growing up, made fun of you a lot.
Yeah, and you want to be general about it. You want to, it's not so much about, it's bullet points, like I said, it's general. So it's not like, on September 17th, 1824, I called you a butthole, in public. It's not, it's going to be more.
Besmirched your character.
Yes, I assassinated your character. You're going to be, generally speaking, more like, I lied to you.
Stole from you.
Yep, I stole from you. I talked negatively behind your back. I dented your car and I never paid you back for it. So it's basically you're trying to tell them the exact nature of your wrongs to them. Okay, and this is specifically about your actions. Like, there's nothing worse than, you ever hear this one? Back to the sorry idea. Well, I'm sorry that hurt your feelings.
Right.
That's not a sorry.
Oh, I don't like that.
You could say, I'm sorry for stepping on your toes. I'm sorry I,
literally stepping
peed in
on
your
toes?
sink. No, I mean, yeah, literally, like you're talking about actions. I'm sorry I stole money from you. That's a sorry that you can start to angle towards being like, okay, we're talking about the action. If you want to really heal things with someone, it's got to be about the action. It's not about what they felt about it. That's such a cop-out you see so many times these days.
Right.
Of like, oh, I'm sorry that hurt your feelings. You're so fragile. You know?
I'm sorry my robbing your home made you upset.
Yeah, I'm sorry you felt scared after that. It's really like,
sorry I put a gun to your head and then upset you.
Right. Yeah, you're here to let them know what you did, and then we have a couple steps after that. So the idea here is that you're really going. And by the way, you get better at this the more you do it. So you probably want to start with people who are softballs. Like for me, it was my family because they're a bunch of 12-steppers, and I've got good relationships with all of them.
Yeah.
So I could kind of, it was easy for me to sit down and kind of get some momentum and learn how the process kind of worked. I even took notes with me to those ones. And so the idea here is that I want to start to understand, for me, it was helpful to have an idea of good and evil. And which one was I doing with them? And some people don't like that paradigm. Some people don't appreciate that kind of wording. But, if evil, suppose that there was such a thing as evil in the world, how was I participating with it? And so what I tended to find was, so not only did I, selfishly do this thing to you, I knew that it was selfish going into it, and I did it anyway. So it's not just that I did this thing to you that was harmful. I knew it was going to harm you, and I decided to do it anyway. I premeditated harm to you.
That's fun.
And that is actually when you really start to get some healings, because you're really getting into that I was an agent of, I was possessed by anger and fear and all these different things, and this was my action. And so really I'm saying these are what my actions were.
And I think it's good to focus on the actions because you may think one thing happened, I may think another, I felt this way, you felt that way, but we can all agree I stole your car, right?
Right.
And so we're in the same basis of reality. I may think I needed it because the guy was coming after me. You may think, hey, don't steal my car, but we both agree what happened action-wise.
Right. I stole your wallet, and then with that wallet in my back pocket, I helped you look for it, and then I removed the money, threw it under a bed, and then claimed to have found it.
Oh.
So
you did me a favor.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was stuff like that where I'm really trying to get what was the full extent of my dishonesty or my, whatever it was. These are the actions of that. That's part one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Which begs the question, What's part 2?
So part 2 is really, again, this is the wisdom of the program that I learned, okay? There are slightly different variations out there, but you go from step 1 of, this is what I did, to the character defect attributed to this harm that you've done. So I did this because I was selfish, self-centered, dishonest, and afraid.
Or afraid, yeah.
It's a very simple, or afraid, yeah. I mean, usually it's you've read them, this list of things of, general, like I stole from you, I tried to hurt you, and then I did hurt you, and I did this because, yes, exactly, and then I premeditatedly hurt you, and then I did this because I was selfish, self-centered, dishonest, and afraid. So this phrase is something that gets into, so these are the character defects that we went through and found, that every human being on the planet has these things, okay? We all have dishonesty, we all have selfishness, we all can be self-centered at times, we all have fear. They're built into us.
No.
And resentment too. I mean, those are all, anger. Those are all parts of these, part of a human being. So the idea here is like, we're just identifying what those traits were, that were at play here, these character defects that were at play.
Okay.
So what about the third part, Alex?
So now that I've told you what I think I did wrong, and then I told you why I think I did it, most of the time I was high doing a lot of this stuff. I don't always remember. So I would ask the other person, is there anything you feel I'm leaving out? And sometimes people will be like, wow, I never even thought about this stuff. It's water under the bridge. Other times people are like, well, yeah, actually you forgot this and this and this. And it really gives them a chance to really clear whatever else is there. So that's that.
Well, and also, again, this truth force idea. I'm there as an ally of truth, and I'm not having to defend Zach anymore. Right. I'm there as an ally of truth, and Zach is the one that may be the one that we're going to try and, let's get some more. What else was it? What else?
Yeah.
And I'll actually say, they might say, well, you did this. You always were, taking the girl that I was talking to at the bar, and that totally hurt my feelings.
That beautiful face kept stealing them all.
Yeah, exactly. I had hair at one point.
I don't think it matters,
It was very
man.
bad for me.
You look good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very phallic and strong,
Like a human Trojan horse.
Yeah, some women are into that.
At least some, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think the other important point here is like, sometimes there's this format, right? But the person may be like, well, actually, don't you remember that time, like, you yelled at me for no reason and, you got somewhere to be?
No, I just checking our time.
And the person goes, yeah, you yelled at me that time at the coffee shop. And it's like, dude, I mean, you were 3 hours late to the coffee shop. Like, you don't want to get into this back and forth or blaming. Like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if they killed your sister. Like, you're there to only take responsibility for your part, not ask them to apologize for anything, or justify anything through their actions.
Right.
Which I love to be defensive. So I can easily be triggered if I don't come into it ready for that kind of thing, potentially.
Right, and coming into this, I mean, you've prayed, you've talked with your mentor,
Waxed.
You've rehearsed it. Waxed, yeah, and Wayne, with Big Wayne from last episode, remember?
Right.
Yeah, and so you're prepared at all these. You've done all of your homework to really be ready for whatever you could imagine coming up. And now there are always curveballs that may happen, but you're really trying to just come at it as honestly and as with as much love and truth as you possibly can have it.
Okay, so now we've cleared the air. Step 3. That person's kind of listed whatever else, something, maybe nothing. And then the last step is really critical, which is I ask the person, I say, what can I do to make it right?
Yep.
And then if it's something I feel like doing, I'll do it.
Right, yeah, I mean, if it's
inconvenient,
yes.
then no.
Well,
right?
Sometimes it will be inconvenient, but you're there again with your best self, and the idea is like, what can I do to make it right? I can't go back and undo it. Sometimes it's easy. It's like a money thing. Well, what can I do? Here's the money. Is there interest involved? Do you, those types of things.
Yeah.
But
compounding.
Well, and what makes sense here? So a lot of people will just be like, oh my God, well just, keep doing what you're doing. This is amazing. I'm so honored that you would tell me. But sometimes these are people that you've royally fucked over, and they're like, don't ever fucking do it again. Or maybe they're like, why don't you come over and wash my fucking car for a year? Because, you used to, piss on the car handles all the time.
Wow.
Just for instance, So yeah, I mean, so there might be something like that, and you got to sit back and be open-minded about this. Maybe it's a reasonable request, and maybe you're like, okay, is there anything else that I can do to make it right? You want to be as generous here as possible, because for you to get free of the stuff that's going on, like you're willing to do within reason what they're going to be asking.
And that's really also, I mean, an awareness of the trade you're making. Is like, okay, like this person wants, $5,000 back, but what am I getting back in return is like freedom and a soul, or at least a part of it, right?
The ability to live a happier, more fulfilled life.
And so, in putting those terms for me, I'm pretty open to doing whatever, except for, like butt stuff.
That's a lie. Let's be honest.
Okay. But usually. Okay, so, and then, I mean, that's really seriously the exchange, is to be able to live a life where you're not trailing all this baggage from the past. There's not people actively sitting around resentful at you. And you can really feel like, oh, I've done everything I can to clear it up. Sometimes, I think one thing we kind of maybe skipped over is, the step one of reaching out. Like, if I've had experiences, somebody doesn't respond back, or they don't want to talk to me, or they, whatever. But I know that I did everything in my power to, like, correct the situation. Not everything's in my control, but I did my part of it for it.
Yeah, and my sponsor always talks about your job is not to come up with the where. It says in the step itself, wherever possible, made direct amends to such people wherever possible. Wherever is not up to me. That's up to God or the universe or this other person, basically. And so wherever isn't up to me. So my job is to be ready to make the amend if it ever comes up. And so if I happen to see this person at a function later, or if I think I'm going to be there, I'm going to be ready to make that amend just in case. And sometimes I've seen somebody at a coffee shop and I'm like, hey, I run out and call my sponsor and I'm like, hey, I'm seeing this person.
Big Wayne's here.
Yeah, Big Wayne's here, and I owe him a lot of money from. Yeah.
How about, I've heard this term like a living amends. What's that about?
So living amends is when you don't have an opportunity to make the direct amends.
So maybe I stole from my grandmother and then she passed away.
Right, exactly. So you're not able to make the amends. They won't accept your phone calls or sit downs, and they're dead, or they're just on Vanuatu. And so what do you do in that situation? Well, or the information that you have for them might be so toxic that if you were to share it, it would, it would harm them to actually share that information.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that you've now got to offload with your network and your higher power.
The big guy.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is stuff that, it might take some time, but once you develop the willingness to be able to talk, all of this stuff is relational. Again, we're relational creatures. And if something is harming me, it's about some form of relationship. So even if God isn't real, if I make up a relationship with something that is all good, all loving, all powerful, all I'm gonna have is if I make up a relationship and it offloads this stuff from me in a way that changes me for the better and keeps me from doing it in the future, I would say that relationship is real enough for it to be a viable way of doing things. And that's what we've discovered in these steps is even if it's not real, it changes you for the better to address these, address this idea of a relationship with a higher power.
Yeah, and I think for any of the amends, both ones where I can directly talk to the person or maybe situations where I'm not able to, an implicit part of this is I'm going to do things differently going forward. It's not like, hey, I did steal that money from you and then I go start, stealing again. Like that doesn't really, I'm just reenacting the same problem. So the idea is I'm cleaning the room and then I'm going to keep it clean.
Exactly. So we're revisiting this idea of justice now, okay?
Justicia.
Yes, I don't know what language that's in, but it sounds like a pretty one. So this idea of justice, when I came into it, it was kind of like, I assume that the justice meted out to me from this is going to be...
Meat justice.
It's going to be what I deserve. So it's helpful to have this idea of like, I'm not here to get what I think I deserve. Based on what I think I deserve and the ways that I think about myself and feel about myself, it's not going to be good what I believe I deserve. So it's not about that. What I found was the things that I got in life were way better than what I thought I deserved. Okay, so it's really about like what a higher power who loves me would want me to have. And you have to see it to believe it. Yet you've got to, amends are not for the faint of heart.
And you have to believe it to see it.
Okay, all right, that's fancy little play on words there.
I like that.
Yeah. So and that's nodding to the point that like we're here to change our beliefs. Our beliefs, create and regulate our emotions. Our emotions, can create and regulate thought patterns. So when we change our beliefs about it, when I show up at somebody's door and I tell them that the exact nature of how I wronged them, and I'm willing to do something to make it right, to see if a healing can occur for them, that's going towards a new something that's changing my thinking in a way that I can't quantify quite. But it changes the future that I'm going to have forever when I start doing these things. I've now become the kind of person that is strong enough to go and face down my demons and atone for them. And take responsibility for all the evil this sick person, this sick version of myself had done. And as I'm stepping out of that, sickness, I'm becoming a real boy all of a sudden. And I'm taking, I'm no longer just, the
wooden boy?
Yeah, the puppet, being pulled by my natural drives and these emotions and thought patterns. Now I'm smashing all of that and I'm becoming real. So we're going, in my experience with my big amends, I walked out of there sometimes feeling this big because I was so afraid to do it, but I knew that if I didn't do it, I was gonna fucking drink again. I mean, I started having, I could just feel nothing but dis-ease all through my being until I showed up and had the resolve to move forward through this amends. Now, and I walked out of there
feels good,
nearly decimated. Oh. But what was decimated?
Your past bullshit.
Exactly, the falseness. The false self had been smashed in this situation. And though I walked out of there feeling about 1 inch tall, like that 1 inch was fucking the purest form of love and acceptance and connection and truth that I had ever felt. It was the purest form, and if we're nothing else, we're still addicts, right? And so like now we're just leveled up to a different drug, love and truth and acceptance and all these things that we were ultimately after anyway, connection.
Yeah, that pure
now
shit.
I'm feeling that from going and doing these things. I can't, it's to be experienced. It's not to be, I'm telling you about it just as a matter of, maybe it's an encouragement for, going and addressing this. So it will set you free.
What is the hardest amends you ever had to do?
I got a couple that were pretty intense. One was with my old coach from my college hockey team. So before I was a full-time alcoholic, I was a hockey player. And my senior year, I got suspended because I talked shit about him on Facebook like an idiot. And it got back to him, and I went and made... And anyway, after it got back to him, he suspended me in my senior year for, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks or something. He could have kicked me off the team, I said like, fuck him, and it got back to him. So not just that, but I had a burning resentment with him because, college hockey wasn't everything, I wasn't a top player on my team. I was a fringe player on my team. And I got to this place where going into my senior season, though I had not come early to practice and stayed late, I was always the last guy in the door for practice, and I was always the first guy gone, actually, because it was hard. I didn't want to be in that environment where I felt like, fuck, these guys are so good. Some of these guys are in the NHL. I was like, man, this is so hard. I don't want to be, I was not in that environment as much as I needed to be to ask for what I was asking for going into my senior season, which was I've been asked to be a captain by the captain. I would need to be a guy who's a regular in the lineup. I was not a regular in the lineup. And there had been other guys in my role who had done all the things to get into the position that I was asking for, and I did not do those actions. So I was asking for something I didn't earn. And when he told me no, I had this fiery resentment to start. And this was around the time when I started to drink more. I was junior, senior year of college, like right around then it was, I was still very active, physically, so it's not like I could drink alcoholically, but I was drinking as hard as I could for a couple nights a week probably. And so this resentment within me just could not let that go. And it became this thing that I said something on Facebook like an idiot, and he suspended me for it. Now, in the years after that, I thought that cost me like a radio career. I was going to try and do a radio career. When I didn't play, I'd go on the radio.
Here we are.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's one thing. But there was just so much sickness in there, and there was a part of me that was trying to, like, I would try to tell this story to people, like, oh yeah, I got to tell you how, like, you know, how screwed up this thing is, and I had this career going in this direction, and
So
I lost it all.
You really held this resentment for a long time.
Yeah, and I was just the sickest. I was so sick with it, and I was trying to infect other people with that sickness too, of like, you have to hear this terrible thing that has happened to me. And there was part of me that was trying to make my whole life about how this guy had wronged me.
So tell me the amends.
So, yeah, so I called him up and asked if I could meet with him, and he was open to it. And I was terrified of doing this because I was also coaching at the time, and I was kind of coaching up until that point. Actually, we were coaching against each other at times. He was coaching at a high school in town. He still coaches there. I was coaching for a different high school in town, and we were kind of rivals. And so I was terrified of like coming out as an addict alcoholic. So I gave him a call, and I went over there, and I had a profound experience around it. First of all, I got into the car, and I had been up in Vail the night before. And on my way down, I'd been on the phone for a long time, and there was a Vail radio station that when I turned on my car, a Vail radio station came on.
It availed itself.
It availed itself, okay? And that's a minor detail, but when I got in the car, it was some radio station that I never listened to, and it was some Christian station, and it was literally playing the Lord's Prayer. Like, it was singing the Lord's Prayer. So I started like crying as I'm driving to this thing and just going like, okay, God, whatever you are, I guess you got this. And I went and I talked with him about it, and he was such a peach, like such a wonderful human about the whole thing. He had said that other people had come to him, you know, and done similar things with Amends. And he asked how my faith was, if I had a God in my life today. He was like, he gave me some direction. I said, you know, what can I do to make it right? And he said, you know, I hope for all of the guys that I coach that they really enjoy the fellowship with their teammates, and I want you to have that. And if you don't have that, I'd like you to go in that direction. And so, I had direction coming from him, which was such a lovely, it just totally changed things, you know? And I walked out of there.
That's so nice, right? It's like, sorry, I like almost jeopardized your whole career. And he's like, go make some friends.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, I tried to assassinate his character. And I just went and let him know that that's what I had done. And he couldn't have, you know, given two shits about that. He was just, he cared about me as a person. And so I was so afraid of this thing, like maybe it's gonna get out, maybe he's gonna tell people, maybe it'll hurt me. And it totally went the other direction. So I was afraid of being harmed in that one, but I did it anyway. Because it was kind of a stupid, I didn't think, you know, for sure that he would try to harm me. But there was some risk of that, I guess, with exposing yourself to anybody. But
I never exposed myself.
Yeah. What about you? Did you have any hard amends?
No. Yeah, I think back on, probably the like hardest for me were, you know, with my family. Like, I stole money from my family and totally abused their trust and kindness, and just having to like own up to that, and kind of, they already knew, like it wasn't like they didn't know, and so just having to go and like really look my mother in the face, and she's just horrible to look at, and really just kind of talk about that stuff and address what, you know, really recognize the kind of pain and worry that I put into their lives. When I've heard this a lot of people, but like I just thought, oh, I'm just hurting myself, you know, this is just about me, I'm not affecting anybody else. And really to acknowledge like, oh, my behavior was really scaring some people, and to kind of have to sit with that and realize I put people through that for, you know, no other reason than my selfishness was not great. Yeah. And then I also, you know, like, maybe this is interesting, but like I had people I used to work with, they used to work for me at a company, and the company went out of business. It's not like I was like embezzling money from the company or something. It just went out of business because it was a startup. But I apologized, you know, made an amends to some people in that. And one of the things everyone lost their jobs because the company went out of business. And some of them were saying, you know, oh, like, I want my salary paid back. And I was like, well, I don't have like salary to pay you back. And so it was this, event where I kind of didn't like do what they asked, basically, because like I'm not responsible for everyone who doesn't like have a salary every day. And so also I think it helped me in knowing like, here's the things I did and here are the outcomes and here are like the limits too. And then some of those people like, they're like, oh, I think I'm owed money. And then I said, okay, well, why don't you like calculate what you think you're owed and let me know. And they never followed up with the actual amount. And so to me that meant like they are angry but didn't really have that much resolve around getting this money back that the company owed them, not me anyway.
Well, that's a great solution to that because it's instead of being like, no, it's kind of like leaving the door open to the possibility that you could be
a billionaire.
Well, or that you might be wrong about not wanting to, because a part of you is going to be like, don't do it, don't give him anything.
Yeah.
But you're doing this higher self thing where, you're kind of saying, well, let me know what you think that is, and you're appealing to their higher self, and then for some reason they don't get back to you, and that might be because their higher self was like, all right, I mean, fair is fair, So that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I don't want to get into startup finance, but
right. It's a risk.
So that was, I think, kind of an atypical outcome that happened with two people, actually. The same exact scenario with like them not getting back to me. And one of them followed up asking for like an intro to somebody that was like a valuable contact, and I happily gave it to them. So I don't know. That was a unique experience. Another one I'm thinking about is like I called like a woman I used to date and just basically apologized for treating her poorly, and she was totally like really nice about it, really just touched that people existed in the world that like went around trying to right their wrongs, and I think restored a bit of her faith in the way people act sometimes, because it's so different than like my playbook of how people operate or how I've ever operated. And I think it's just a comfort if somebody showed up to me that like had screwed me over and was just like, hey, like I'm trying to make things better in my life, I'd be like, oh my God, like this doesn't happen every day. It's sort of a miracle, how weird, how unusual that is.
So did you have any amends that just didn't come off well or went sideways?
I guess none that were like directly confrontational. I think I had some where the people just never got back to me, or there was a different girl I dated in Boston. I was going to Boston, I messaged her and she just had, never responded to me. But again, that's kind of like the worst outcome. But I, again, was able to be like, well, like I was perfectly willing to do this. And, that's all I can do. And if, I don't want to like inflict myself, like, no, I'm going to show up at your work and I need to tell you. Like, if you don't want to see me, I get it.
Yeah, right.
So I see here we have written comes along with the.
I had a couple.
No,
I only asked you because I wanted to know.
Oh,
I wanted
you
to
talk about yourself. Got you.
Well, it's useful for the audience out there. So I had a couple amends with people that I was really close with, and this word betrayal came up in those amends when I asked them about what was going on with them. If there was anything that I missed, and they were basically like, well, what you're describing here is basically betrayal. You have betrayed me. And they were people that were very close to me. And to me, I was like, yes, that is, I betrayed you. But it was a lingering sting with them. And it was, that was something that was really, I think it kind of fundamentally changed these relationships where we're no longer close, like as close as we once were. These people that I'm talking about, I was very, very close with each of them. And there were multiples. And this idea of betrayal, I think it's just worth noting, like, in Dante's Inferno, this guy that laid this idea, let's try to find the worst type of hell that there can be, and what are the layers of that?
Rings.
And I think,
layers. Rings, I think.
And I think he did a good job of that. He identified that betrayal was right next to Satan himself. Like, you're the worst kind of person to be like a person of trust, and then to use that power and that position against that person. And so, to me, it wasn't a surprise at that point, because it was like, yeah, like I am doing evil when I'm in my sickness, and it was a moment that stuck with me, because unfortunately I don't have close relationships with those folks anymore, but I pray for them regularly, and so it's one of those things where if I can't have a relationship, I want them to have the best possible life that they have, and maybe it's healthier without me in it. As close. And so, that's a living amend type of thing. And I'm trying to be the best version of myself on the other side of it, which is a full-time job as it is.
Amen.
So, So, and I guess on that front, some of these things, maybe it's hard for me to talk about it, I guess, but to kind of say, like, don't be afraid of making these amends. Okay, like you need to be free. And if that involves, you not getting to have certain relationships anymore that you treasure, then that's just going to be the way that it is. And that's going to be okay. Life is going to be okay moving forward with those things. And to me now, like, it made room for a lot of other relationships that I have that I treasure now. And maybe I hope and pray that later on I can have, deeper connections with these people. To me, it's the deepest level there is, which is no surface contact. But like, I just love them deep. Underneath everything, and we're tied in some way. And obviously, if they want to move on, they'll move on. But don't be afraid of these things.
I think there's some good news though.
Yes.
This is my favorite part of the whole book.
The promises?
The promises, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the gifts, baby.
Yeah, show me what I'm going to get here.
I want that money. I want that cheddar, baby.
Once I start doing these amends, what the fuck am I going to be receiving in my life?
Right, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
So, a nice little package.
Little contract package. I'm going to sign here.
I'm going to just go ahead and read it.
Start reading.
Here we go. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through.
We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness.
We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it.
We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace.
No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others.
That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear.
We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows.
Self-seeking will slip away.
Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change.
Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us.
We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us.
We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves.
Are these extravagant promises?
We think not.
They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
They will always materialize if we work for them.
Beautiful.
Those are the 9-step promises. What's our call to action this week?
It is to put together a letter and basically write out an amends to somebody that you've wronged in your past. And again, you don't have to have done excessive violations on people to be able to make someone's life a little bit better by taking responsibility for your part in it. So basically, just kind of like the mechanics of what we talked about in these amends is tell them, what the thing is that you're making amends for, what you did, why you did it across these different defects of character, if you've left anything out, and how to make it right.
Yeah, we'll have the directions on your screen there. And I would just say, along with that challenge, like, do you want to be a real motherfucker? Do you want to be a solid ass human being who can stand in there through anything? I wouldn't say, I'm not saying mail this letter, especially if you're not doing these steps with a mentor or peer. I would just say write it out and test yourself out. Face what's going on. If you've got a relationship that is sticking out in your mind, that's something that is painful for you.
And I will say it's like, for the rest, like there's people I went up to that was really scary, kind of like the amends you're talking about. And after you do it, the whole rest of your life, you go, I'm someone who went up to this person I was terrified to talk to, didn't know what was going to happen, and I took responsibility for something. And there's a level of self-esteem and pride that comes from that, regardless of kind of how the outcome.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So Be that kind of person along with us. Be a 9-step motherfucker. All right, so what's step 10 next week?
Step 10 is continue to make a personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it.
Holy shit, it sounds like you do that regularly.
I do.
Wow, like
There's
a
lot
daily
of wrongs
thing.
to...
The principle on the 10-step is perseverance. We'll be covering that in the next episode. And we got some thank yous to make. Blackwater Audio, Tyler Duffus. We love you, Duff. He's pinching those nipples over there. Caleb Bond for the artwork, 38 State. And
Animal Cannibal.
Animal Cannibal by Avery Quest is our theme music.
And thanks to me.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Oh, high fives. One every episode.
See you later.
See you the next time.